Tuesday from Diana O. Pusick. It's a dramedy about a mother guided through her daughter's imminent death by a supernatural entity. In this movie, we follow Zora, played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Her teenage daughter Tuesday, played by Lola Pettigrew, has been terminally ill for quite some time and is living her last days. She's confronted by a mysterious talking parrot that is the incarnation of death. He's come to put Tuesday to rest, but when Zora tries to stop him, she and her daughter are sent on an otherworldly journey. So this movie is obviously about grief, but that is often experienced in 5 stages. At its core, this movie is about the final stage of grief, which is of course acceptance. It's about coming to terms with the fact that somebody you love will no longer be a part of your life and figuring out how to move on without them. This is an extremely difficult thing to go through, especially for a parent. To spend years raising a child with high hopes of who they could be one day, and then having to say goodbye to them forever is an unimaginably painful experience. Of course, Zora still has Tuesday in her life, so when death flutters its wings toward them, she doesn't want to accept that the day has come for her to say goodbye. But this is a bit of a double-edged sword because she has molded her lifestyle around taking care of her daughter, and the results aren't very sustainable for either of them. So this movie was far more supernatural than I was expecting it to be. I knew it would be somewhat fantastical because of the talking parrot, but this was actually just a straight-up fantasy film. I don't want to just outright spoil it, but Zora and Tuesday spend much of the second act dealing with the repercussions of a questionable decision made in the first act. This sends them on a pretty bizarre misadventure that pretty much just takes over in the movie. I wish I could say that it sheds some light on Zora losing her daughter, but I just didn't see any parallels. It was a really interesting part of the movie, but it led me to question what the movie wanted to be about. In the end, it definitely turns things back around to being about accepting loss for a really touching finale, but it does kind of just feel like 2 different movies were combined into one. To clarify, I didn't hate that really supernatural aspect of the film. It did feel a little absurd, but it also made the movie really unique. If I'm being honest, it might have only been jarring because it was completely absent from the trailer. That made the movie seem like it was going to be much more like a traditional drama. Additionally, the movie was a lot sillier than I was expecting. I did expect Zora and Tuesday to have some amount of playful banter, just as a means of coping, but the parrot took part in quite a lot of silly bits too. Some of them were really clever, and then others I think I could have gone without. Specifically 1 or 2 scenes in the first act. The movie opened in a way that appropriately set the stage. There was a very dark sequence of events. But then these back-to-back silly scenes kind of undermined the film's otherwise very serious tone. I like that the movie was able to include some very lighthearted and fun moments that contrast the story that is otherwise very tragic, but at that point in the film, they just felt like a little bit much. The performances were great. Julia Louis-Dreyfus was wonderful. She was able to pull off a wide range of emotions, the most important one, of course, being sorrow. But she also did a great job being a silly character, which was much needed considering how comical much of the film was. And she definitely hits all the bullet point characteristics of being a good parent. She's loving and nurturing, but she's also stern when she needs to be. So there's really no better way for me to describe this movie than to just say that it was interesting, because throughout the movie, I kept just going, interesting. It's bizarre, but not too oddball. The oddities really gave the movie some zest that, along with the heavy emotions and clever humor, made it a really memorable film overall. All things considered, it was a decent film. I'll say that it's pretty good. This is a good watch if you're in the mood for something offbeat, or if you just feel like crying. But this might not be the movie to watch if you are going through a similar experience. If you happen to have lost somebody recently, then this probably would hit a little too hard. Thank you for watching this review. If it brought you any value at all, please give it a like. It really does help the channel grow. I'll see you later this week with my review of The Bike Riders.